On the Discovery Channel. Find yourself on a journey through a magical place. Be mystified by a legendary civilization found teetering on the brink of immortality, and unearth the remains of 200 eerily preserved Peruvian mummies. It was a 500-year-old mystery until now. Lost Warriors of the Clouds. Premiering Monday, October 19th at 9 Eastern and Pacific, only on the Discovery Channel. Explore your world.
In a remote corner of northern Peru, the mountains of the Andes are shrouded in mist, and the skies weep with rain. This is the cloud forest. For 1,000 years, this high-altitude jungle was home to an ancient civilization called the Chachapoya. They built massive fortresses of stone, and the jungles rang with their cries of battle. Now, their cities are silent, the warriors long gone. Centuries after their demise, we are about to meet them face to face. High in the jungle, looters have found a burial site, and it is filled with mummies, fragile emissaries from the ancient past. On the edge of the cloud forest, a team of scientists are mounting an expedition to the burial site. This is a rescue mission. Looters have already ransacked the mausoleums. It is now a race to retrieve what's left before they can strike again. Dr. Sonia Guillen is one of the world's leading authorities on mummies, and ethnohistorian Dr. Peter Lerche has been studying the Chachapoya for 20 years. A cargo caravan will carry everything they need to survive some 2 months in the jungle. Their route will take them through some of the least explored territory in the Peruvian Andes. From the town of Lemebamba, they will trek 25 miles to reach the burial site, located near a high mountain lake called Laguna de los Condores. Their journey is a precarious one. The winding trail is slick with a coating of mud, and dangerously steep and narrow gorges are a challenge for even the surest of foot.
There's a big concern about security. We're involving many people, and the road is worse than what you can imagine. Just fall from these horses on these rocks, you know, somebody's head broken.
Gradually, they gain altitude, and the thin air of high mountain passes 12,000 feet above sea level. They are now deep in the heart of the Chachapoya's ancient territory.
It's incredible, the beauty of the landscape, and when you get up on this ridge and you get to this lake, you really feel something very deep inside. No?
After 14 hours, they've reached their goal. Their small video camera scans the cliff face for a first glimpse of the burial site, clinging like moss to the cliffside. Surveying the site will have to wait. On flat ground at the eastern tip of the lake, the team hacks a base camp out of thick vegetation. Bamboo platforms provide a dry place for their gear and primitive accommodations. It takes 2 weeks to construct a workable trail up to the site. But even with ladders to help them, it's still a strenuous climb.
Well, we are in the cloud forest. We're in the jungle area, but at high elevation and intense humidity, and the effort of living here is quite a task.
This daily trek to and from the burial site takes the archaeologists almost an hour each way. Nearly 400 feet above the waters of Laguna de los Condores, perched on a narrow ledge are the remains of 6 rectangular mausoleums. They are burial chambers for the dead. The Chachapoya had carefully selected one of the driest places for miles. Tucked behind a little waterfall, the mausoleums were well protected from the destructive power of wind and rain. The cliff face above the burial chambers is covered in pictographs, cryptic messages from the past. The wooden rooftops hold a wealth of artifacts and a staggering collection of mummies. They are strewn in a tangle of bodies, a grim reminder that looters got here first. The archaeologists have their work cut out for them, but time and the weather are not on their side.
There's an emergency, you know, it's been raining here, but there's certainly a rainy season coming, and once that rainy season comes, it's going to be a lot more humid, and it's going to be very, very difficult to get people to work here.
They tackle first the debris in front of the mausoleums. Though the pressure is on to work quickly, they still practice sound archaeology, dividing the area into a matrix of white string to help identify the precise location of every artifact. Most of what they recover is not in good shape. In their zeal to find gold or other items of value, the looters rummaged through the mausoleums, throwing fragile burial offerings out the window. But pottery wasn't the only thing they tossed aside.
This is really, truly a surprise, finding a newborn baby. And unfortunately, this is the material that was dispersed by the looters when they started removing the material inside the mausoleums. El bebé. Yo creo que Rocío, tú te regresas a trabajar.
It takes several weeks of painstaking labor just to collect the scattered material in front of the mausoleums. Now they can turn their attention to the relics and mummies waiting inside. The only way in is from above, and it's a tight squeeze, even for one slender archaeology student. The 5 by 6 foot chamber is not spacious and already occupied by skulls, bodies, and dozens of bundles, mummies wrapped tightly in cloth.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Algunos huesos sueltos.
The mummy bundles that are unwrapped were unwrapped by the looters, and they were looking for gold, and so they unwrapped some of the bundles and sometimes even took machetes and hacked them to bits. Oh, Sonia, here comes an arm.
An arm with
hand
not enough
missing
of the
its
fingers.
bottom part of its fingers.
Okay.
All right. Oh, this one's in really bad shape, but it does have a nice thick skull.
Ay, ¿a este dónde le ponemos nada?
Sí, que ahí ven la cara, ya saben, ¿no?
Though almost every bundle has felt the bite of the looter's machete, there are still a number almost completely intact.
This is unprecedented. To have so many mummy bundles coming out of just one structure. Mummy bundles ranging from babies to what seem to be really huge people. I mean, judging from the size of the mummy bundles. Yeah?
I don't think anybody would be expecting something like this in the jungle.
In this wet climate, these mummies should have rotted away long ago. But inside this dry niche, they remained intact for hundreds of years.
Wow.
¿Ya? ¿Algo más?
Sí, tiene como una faja.
A video portrait is taken of each mummy to record details. Intact bundles reveal an embroidered face like a child's drawing, a woven belt, a tangle of hair, and fingers stitched together with strings.
Bodies were prepared to have a flexed position. It's not really a fetal position, that's an image people make out of it. I certainly think it was to their advantage that the bodies were flexed because it was more convenient to carry them, and through the process they made them a light load. I'm sure some people will say, oh, they looked like they were screaming, they were buried alive, they were suffering, and they were wrapped around while they were still breathing. Maybe having the mouth open, let the spirits go out or go in. Wonderful questions. I wish we had very good answers.
A torn bundle is decorated with patterns significant to the Chachapoya.
Here we find these basic elements of Chachapoyan thinking, of Chachapoyan culture. We have up here the zigzag represents the snake, and here the rhombo represents the jaguar eye.
Peter has seen these designs before in the walls of ruins scattered throughout the Chachapoya's vast territory, which at one time reached almost 25,000 square miles. In the last 20 years, Peter has explored more than 200 of these ancient sites. Most of them lie hidden beneath dense layers of jungle vegetation.
It's really an exciting time now for Chachapoyan archaeology, because nearly every week somebody tells me, I did find a new ruin in this valley, in this district, and I have not enough time to go there, no? When you look out there on each of these hills, on the ridges of these mountains, you will find ruins. Ruins everywhere. We find in several places fortresses. That indicates tension between ethnic groups. Constant fighting. Why was tension here? Why not in another place?
The answer may lie in the ruggedness of this mountain terrain and the demands it placed on survival. Vying for scarce natural resources, the Chachapoya lived as rival chiefdoms, raiding each other's territories for the best farmland. For protection, the Chachapoya built their cities inside mountaintop fortresses. With stone walls towering over 60 feet high, Quelap is by far the most spectacular of these citadels. Battles raged on the slopes below, but the population stayed safe inside. Quelap was designed to withstand even a large-scale invasion. The main entrance to the city is a remarkable feat of strategic engineering. Shaped like a funnel, the passage gradually narrows to the width of just one person. Defending this gateway would have been possible with only a few warriors. Inside the fortress are the remains of over 400 dwellings. Today, workmen are in the process of reconstructing one of these round houses. Some 25 feet in diameter, the limestone walls were held together with a mortar of mud. Each house would probably have held an extended family of some 10 individuals. Paint fragments found clinging to old stonework suggest that the Chachapoya enjoyed color and detail. Exterior walls were vibrant with ochre and yellow pigment, and the houses of the elite were banded with geometric friezes. Conical roofs of thatch topped each circular dwelling. At the height of its occupancy, a community of some 4,000 Chachapoya lived inside the fortress of Cuelap. As they did in life, the Chachapoya tried to protect themselves in death by seeking inaccessible places for their burial chambers. It would have been an arduous trek up to the mausoleums at Laguna de los Condores. The cliffside location was designed to discourage all but the most respectful visitors. The bodies of the dead were placed both inside the burial chambers and carried up in wooden coffins to the rooftops. From here, the spirits of the deceased would have a spectacular view of what was probably, for the Chachapoya, a sacred lake. From ground level, the team has been tantalized by the rounded skull of another well-preserved mummy peeking from the edge of the rooftop. After a month of work, this is their first chance to get a closer look. In many places, the wooden ceilings have caved through, forcing them to navigate a precarious route to reach the mummy. It's a delicate balancing act across narrow beams and crumbling walls.
Necesito una pierna más larga. Dice blanco y negro en la falda, It's really high risk working here, and I'm counting the days when we can finish because the roofs are unstable, the walls are unstable. And every day that goes by, I'm thankful, really thankful. There are no bad news.
But sometimes the risks pay off.
Gracias. Dentro de esta población, los hombres no son muy... Mira su nariz grandota, pero acá estos huesos son robustos dentro de esa población. But it's so interesting, so exciting. This was something we really came here for, is to find the evidence of processing of the human body to make sure that it prevails through time, to mummify it. There's clear evidence that this body was mummified, was prepared somewhere else before it was brought up here. The nostrils have pieces of cotton, and also they have stuffed material. I think it's wool, raw wool that they put between the skin and the interior part and in the cheeks, just to make sure that the face kept its shape.
The care that was used to preserve these mummies and the effort it must have taken to get them up to this burial site suggests these people may have been the most important members of Chachapoya society.
It's very emotional to carry a real Chachapoyan person in your hands, no? In your arms. You really get in touch with a pre-Hispanic man.
collect hundreds of artifacts, each an important clue to the Chachapoya's mysterious past.
Mira.
Este está en la pintura, Sony, ahí mismo.
Despacio, no lo cagas. ¿Ah? Mira, pajaritos, ¿no? Well, these are guinea pigs, huh? One too small to be good food, but this one I think would be a good size to be eaten. They're food offerings for the people that were buried here. So we really have a bunch of very interesting specimens here.
¡Wow! Espérate, Peter, te voy a tomar foto.
Yeah.
Peter has found a real treasure. It's a woven tunic, the fabric still supple and full of color after centuries of exposure.
We've been seeing pieces and pieces coming down from the roof, and suddenly you're handed something like this. When you look at the colors and you look at the preservation, it's a combination of wonder and feeling small and sort of humble. This is the best textile we've found so far, in great state of preservation compared to the other material and what we're expecting to find here. Look at this pink color and then the blue and the yellow, they're in this mustard color. And then we go down to these other figures. Those are the stylizations of some animal. Maybe some sort of frog, some jumping animal.
The team works in an assembly line to clear off the balcony. The last of the mummies are still in the wooden coffins used to carry them to the mausoleums. They collect every item for further study. Emptying the site is their only option, as looters are likely to stage another raid after they leave.
Under these circumstances, we have to act. Other people will come and loot the site and sell all over the world the mummies and ceramics, and we have to do everything to save this. It's very important for science.
After 2 months of hard work, they've recovered the mummified remains of 219 individuals. These are the first artificial mummies ever found in the jungles of South America. The archaeologists must now prepare each body for a grueling journey they were never intended to make, away from their burial place, across the mountains, and across time to the late 20th century. On the ridge across the lake from the mausoleums, the team rendezvous with a mule caravan. The rainy season is now upon them in full force. In a steady downpour, they load their precious cargo.
Otros dos negros con un esos dos van juntos.
Y uno de esos.
Y este. Ese.
Dos cajas.
The only way for Sonia to get the mummies to safety is to transport them on muleback all the way to Lemebamba. In this weather, it is a formidable trek. The slippery trail has turned into a quagmire, slowing their progress and putting their fragile cargo at even greater risk.
I think more than worried, I'm really scared. Once you see all these mules coming down with the mummies, you are also feeling the responsibility. I think they were in real danger where they were. They had already been sacked, they were being destroyed, but are we going to be able to do a better work?
They slugged their way slowly across the mountains. At the end of 16 soggy hours, the rooftops of Lemebamba finally appear in the distance. Sonia has rented a house in this small mountain town to serve as a makeshift laboratory and refuge for the mummies. Before starting her analysis, they bury fruit and coca leaves in the courtyard, a small offering to the spirits of the ancient ones now under their protection.
I basically find it as a way to say thank you. As a ritual, it's a sign of respect, that we care for them.
Here, Sonia can finally examine the mummies at close range. Though this is hardly a high-tech facility, it is more than sufficient for the initial stages of research. And for now, these mummies have traveled far enough. In her 20-year career, Sonia has helped unwrap over 300 mummies, but this is her first chachapoya.
I'm smelling, because these mummies don't smell like mummies. They must have put something that has masked that typical odor of the mummy odor. It just doesn't smell like mummies that are desiccated naturally. It's definitely a puzzle. You know, sometimes you get to know patterns, but this is one of the very early ones we're doing. So we're learning in the process, and you have to be able to undo something and be able to replicate what you're doing, so you can learn how this body was finally wrapped. That's part of the game, really.
No knives or scissors are used in the process of unwrapping. Only nimble fingers to untie the knots and stitches sewn by hand centuries ago.
Bolsa de dormir.
The fragile textile is gently peeled away from the body and will later be cleaned and conserved. Sonia's flashlight picks up a hint of metal.
This is most probably a piece of a necklace. It's a tweezer, a metal tweezer, probably silver and copper. Here we have lapis lazuli, an imported stone for this area. See how blue it is?
Tucked into the mummy's wrappings, Sonia finds what may be a sign of mourning, placed there by a close relative or loved one. It is a swatch of long, dark hair, tied together with a woven band.
You know, there's this sensation of care, of wrapping him up in this very fine shirt and, you know, presenting him offerings like hair, wrapped up also in a very nice textile, putting this necklace, you know, it really shows that people cared for him and they wanted to be preserved for eternity, and in a way he has.
But not all the bodies buried in the mausoleums were mummified. Sonia's team also recovered the skeletal remains of another 300 to 400 individuals. All of these bones were found at the bottom of the tombs. evidence that they are older than the mummies. There seems to have been a shift in how the Chachapoya treated the bodies of their dead. Scattered throughout the cloud forest are more common Chachapoya burial sites, which may help explain this transition.
There's going to be a little drag here, but I'm just going to unclip my chains.
This kind of face you meet in every place where you find sarcophagi. It's the same style, it's a prototype.
With the help of professional climbers, Peter will try to reach one of these clusters of sarcophagi, perched atop a narrow ledge. Known as Quichimal, this site has managed to escape the destructive acts of looters. Though Peter will not excavate, he'll be the first person to get a close look at these sarcophagi and their contents, since they were built centuries ago.
Look, take the time to look down and trust your feet. The ledge looks solid.
Loose stone everywhere. I saw that there were no mummies, only bones, held together by ropes and by some cloth.
The absence of mummies is typical of early Chachapoya burial sites. To find a possible source of inspiration for this new practice, Peter turns to early Spanish chronicles that document the history of the region. At the beginning of the 15th century, the powerful Inca Empire was gaining momentum in what is now southern Peru. In less than 100 years, the empire, based in the capital city of Cusco, extended close to 700,000 square miles. Around 1470, the Inca turned their attention to the lands occupied by the Chachapoya. Bent on conquest, they sent massive armies to invade the cloud forest. The Chachapoya battled fiercely, but their fragmented regiments were no match for the Inca's well-coordinated armies. Within roughly a decade, the Chachapoya had become part of the Inca Empire. These same chronicles describe the Inca as skilled in the practice of mummifying their dead, preserving their bodies for the afterlife. The Chachapoya may have been assimilated into the Inca's cult of ancestor worship and taught their techniques of mummification. Using a small vacuum cleaner, they prepare a second mummy bundle for examination. This one has already been partially opened by the looter's machete.
Y lo suficiente para liberar el cuerpo si es que puede salir. You're looking for every single detail, whether there's trauma, there's injury, there's wear of some part of your body, will suggest what's the story behind. Some injury there. Something happened here. See how thicker the skin is here compared to the other parts of the scalp? The scalp goes like this and suddenly makes this bump. Something was going on and the insects concentrated here, like there was an open wound here. Huh? Something happened to this young individual, a very young boy or girl, and it either fell to that side or was, was whacked here, and I don't know, but I would presume that the bone is also broken. But this reaction shows what easily could be the cause of death for this individual.
After death, a body begins to decay almost immediately. The process starts with the internal organs. To prevent decomposition, the ancient Egyptians removed the kidney, liver, intestines, and stomach through an incision in the abdomen. The Chachapoya appeared to have used a different technique.
This is the vagina, and there's a tampon, and I'm going to remove it now. And it's cloth material. I don't think they were using something like this for her menstrual period. Definitely we're dealing with a girl, and a very young girl. I wouldn't say she's older than 11. She could already be menstruated, but such a piece of material is probably more likely used in the process of mummification.
Other mummies may give Sonia more clues, but for now, research will have to take a back seat to conservation. Prolonged exposure to the damp weather could cause the mummies to deteriorate. They are placed in storage with a dehumidifier for close monitoring during the rest of the rainy season. After 6 months, the sun returns to northern Peru. Though Sonia's permanent home is in Lima, she now has a regular commute to Lemebamba to keep an eye on the mummies. Her first concern is to see how they've fared in her absence. In this land of extremes, conservation has become one of her biggest challenges.
There. Nice baby girl. The mummy has humidity conditions that are special. If there's too much water in the environment, mold will start growing and destruction will be very fast. Also, if it gets too dry, we will have problems, especially for the textiles, because the fibers will become more brittle.
Sonia uses a simple device called a hygrometer to monitor climate conditions inside the lab.
Well, it's 56% humidity, and then we have temperature in Fahrenheit, 71. That's a good reading.
They seem to have hit on the right combination of temperature and humidity. The mummies have remained in good shape. Sonia can now examine the body of the adult male to see if he too shows signs of evisceration.
He is really clean now. Yeah, ahí está bien. Entonces So here, this really looks promising because this piece here is definitely a plug, very much like the ones we've seen with females, and that is it. That's it. That is put into the anus. That's clearly put into the anus, and I'm gonna try to remove it. There. Well, there's some clues coming from this plug. If you look at it, it is dry. Well, it's dry now, but it doesn't look like it got in contact with body uses. It really looks like it was put inside a dry cavity, pushing speculations to frontiers that are not so safe. I would say that there was a point where organs in the lower cavity as a whole were pulled out, something like with a hook. That's one possibility. we really need to know what is inside, how it's inside, to have better sources to speculate.
The team now has a portable X-ray machine modified for use in the field. Though there are no bells and whistles on this model, the basic technology should shed light on whether the internal organs have been removed.
Okay. Un poquito más allá.
The mummies are exposed to high levels of radiation for several seconds at a time. The rays penetrate the body and cast an image on the negative cassette beneath. Inside a darkroom, the negatives are developed by hand. It takes 15 minutes in a chemical bath to expose the image. Improvising is the key to scientific success when you are working in remote locations. A kitchen sink serves them well as a rinse tank. The bright sky and a clothesline become a functional light table.
¿No ves que la fractura está ahí? Just having the chance to be looking at X-rays aside just from the outside observations is what makes science so exciting. Just being able to get more clues and getting closer to either prove or disprove what we're thinking.
The images confirm Sonia's theory.
Acá está la línea. Sí. Follow this line, okay? This line here, that's the skin on the leg. You know, muscle and the skin. So we are getting very good contrast that is allowing us to locate soft tissue. And if you really follow, you can even find the plug that was inserted into the anus. Here it is, and it's very, very, very clear. This is the internal cavity. This is the pelvic area. If the intestines were present with intestinal content, we should be able to see them. So I would say that we have here an image that indicates that there are no organs inside this cavity.
Removing the internal organs was only one of several steps they took to preserve the body.
As part of the embalming procedure, they had put raw cotton here, and there's also this cotton that was put inside the nostrils. And I would think that this is part of the procedure to make sure that the face doesn't lose its original features. And the skin was treated. They must have applied some material, some unguent or liquid that made the skin into this leathery consistency that we are seeing right now. You can even trace the lines in his forehead that he had when he was alive.
Preliminary testing suggests that plant extracts were used to dehydrate the skin, though Sonia will have to wait for further analysis to determine exactly what kind.
Well, teeth look wonderful. Anybody would like to have this set of teeth. You know, they're healthy, cannot see no cavities, well, tartar. There's tartar still there. This will be our best clue for aging right now. Obviously, he's an adult male, and age-wise, from the wear of the teeth, we could say 35, 40 years old, probably.
This mummy also has elongated earlobes, in his time a sign of power. But this was an Inca tradition, worn by men of authority. Could this man, buried with the Chachapoya, actually have been one of their Inca conquerors? The presence of another sign of Inca power found in the mausoleums with the mummies supports this theory. These knotted string record-keeping devices called quipus were used by Inca dignitaries to keep track of administration throughout the realm. The information was conveyed by the color of the strings and the intricate combination of knots.
The fact that they were found at the Laguna de los Condors indicates that some of the administrators, some of those that could make them and interpret them, sort of read them, were buried there.
The mummy with the long ears may have been one of these administrators. The fibers wrapped around his body and clenched tightly in his fist could mean that he was connected to the production of textiles like this one. Woven goods, like the beautiful tunic found at the burial site, were a major form of tribute collected from the Chachapoya. With soft brushes and spoons, the technicians carefully collect centuries of accumulated dirt, and the tunic begins to glow with fresh color. There is much to learn from the hundreds of ceramics that were buried with the mummies. This small Chachapoya pot is covered with leather and may have been used like a canteen. Not all of the ceramics are Chachapoya. Different styles and patterns link these pots to distant parts of the Inca realm, evidence of an active trading network. Each one must be cleaned, measured, and catalogued. Sonia doesn't plan to unwrap every bundle. If the textiles are in good shape, they'll leave the mummy inside and rely on X-rays for a glimpse at the contents. But this big bundle with the blue wrappings is in need of attention. The X-rays of the skull reveal a small object wrapped close to the head.
This is something strange here, but I don't know what it is. This one, fortunately, the looters didn't whack. They didn't use their machetes with it. For some magical reason, it escaped the greed of the looters. But there's natural deterioration that's taken place, and we need to protect the textiles and hopefully also the material inside, and that's why we are going to try to unwrap it. De repente le podemos poner un poquito de humedad, ¿no?
Underneath the blue fabric is another wrapping of simple beige and white cloth. And beneath that, a third layer. Though at least 500 years old, the stripes in this textile are still vivid and clear. But they are not yet close to the mummy. Beneath the stripes is another white wrapping. And finally, 48 hours after they began, a fifth layer. It is a fragile textile shirt wrapped around the body. And through the armhole,
another cloth. One that's around the whole body, just as the others. That means for tonight, that's as far as we'll go tonight. If it's too delicate that we cannot get to the mummy, that it's more important to keep the textile with the mummy, we'll have to do that. The materials are the most precious thing we have.
it will take Sonia and her colleagues years to uncover the complete story of the people called Chachapoya and the Inca who came to occupy their lands. Each mummy has its own secrets, its own history. But under the watchful eyes of science, they are coming back to life, one at a time.
I think he's becoming a closer relative. He's part of the family, the ones that are telling their stories to us. So we are feeling a sense of continuity that they are here with us.
Where I go, where I walk, I meet new data and I develop new ideas. There's so much ahead of us, so many miracles and so many questions to answer.